Hi guys, I've been diagnosed with MS for a few years now, and I've been wanting to make a video, but I do have bad anxiety, so I was very nervous about it. But I just kind of wanted to put my symptoms out there and my journey, because I know for a lot of people, not just myself, it was very hard getting a diagnosis. There's a little bit of a journey to that, finding treatment, finding doctors to listen. And I just kind of wanted to see, out there, maybe people could answer back with, their symptoms or things that they've gone through. It's just kind of hard to reach out and find people who share. When you try to talk to a family or people who don't have it, they don't understand, they don't get that it really affects every part of your body, or, but I don't want it to be negative. I want it to be a positive channel. I want to try to incorporate other things that aren't necessarily just MS, but I mostly want to show how MS, does have its really bad times and really bad things about it, but how we live our lives with it, right? But first, I just want to talk about symptoms and trying to get a diagnosis, because it's incredibly hard sometimes. And actually seeing some of Blair's video, or not video, but interviews and stuff, I was like, so it's not just us. I mean, it's, even a celebrity has a hard time. So that's kind of interesting. But I do have bad anxiety, so if you see me looking around and not focusing, I mean, MS people have a hard time focus, right? Anyways, but I'm really trying because I'm really nervous. But so basically, I got diagnosed a few years ago with MS. I first went to the doctor saying, I couldn't get home from work. Driving home from work, I would either feel really, really tired, or I would feel out of it, almost like I would have these spouts of where I'd have to pull over, because I felt like my brain just wasn't able to interact. Like, it wasn't telling my feet what to do or my legs what to do, and I couldn't understand. I still don't understand specifically what that is. It's happened to me a few times since, but it was happening to me a lot during this time, and I couldn't figure it out, and I still don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's like panic, or if it really, I don't. But when I went to the doctor, they just kept telling me, oh, you're stressed. I would tell them my hands feel numb, my feet feel numb, my legs feel numb. I feel out of it a lot. I feel really tired. And I was like, you don't understand. It's not just, oh, I feel a little tired or fatigued. It's like, if I don't lay down and take a nap right now, I'm not gonna make it. So she just said, you're stressed. You're young. You're stressed. I know I've heard a lot of people say that that's what they got too, is that you're just stressed. And I just think that's like an unfair diagnosis. I mean, not that we're not stressed. I mean, I stress, of course. Everyone stresses, I'm sure. But they didn't look, So finally I ended up saying that I had low vitamin D. They didn't think that would cause the issues, but they, they put me on vitamin D and said I needed to meditate and find more time for myself, instead of just being a mom. I said, okay, so I tried, but it wasn't working. I was feeling really tired still. My legs were going numb when they want to, feeling tingly, feeling asleep, and not like, I was sitting on my leg for 30 minutes and I put it to sleep. It was just random. So I had a flare where my whole left went numb. And this was like a ways after. This was like after I've been keep going to the doctor saying I don't feel right, something's wrong, blah, blah, blah. Finally, so when I had that, my friend said, I think you should go to the ER. What if you're having a stroke? I said, okay. So we went. Apparently here where I live, they don't do MRIs in the ER, because that doesn't cause it doesn't show like a life-threatening. They could do a CT or do a stroke eval. So they did a stroke eval and said, you're not having a stroke, go ahead and go with your PCB. They sent me home. I do have a pituitary tumor, but it's really nothing. It's not cancerous or nothing. It just puts out hormones. It would not cause this, but they were like, maybe it grew, maybe it's hitting a nerve. Okay, so I went to my PCP. I said, okay, I need an MRI. The ER doesn't do MRIs. Can we do this fast? She said, I really don't think it's going to be anything. I think that you're just stressing. She sent me to an MRI where she was putting normal. I said, look, I work for an insurance company. I know that there's people who get urgent MRIs for a lot less than what I'm dealing with. Please. I'm completely numb. I haven't been able to eat. My tongue feels like, like if you were at the dentist and got numbed, like you can't eat right. You can't function. I mean, not that you can't function, but it's hard because it's every day and it's all day and it's not going away. And so finally her MA comes in and she says, well, she agreed to mark it urgent, but said that she doesn't think they'll find anything, and walked out. I felt like it was just not, like they didn't care. So I went and did my MRI. They found lesions. She did not call me. The PCP did not. It was a few days, and I had kept calling the office, and they were like, oh, she's busy. Finally they said, well, she's out for the next day or two. And I was like, really? She didn't call me like that night? I said, someone needs to call me tonight. Like, I'm not going to be here with my kids not knowing what's happening when I'm feeling numb. And so another doctor finally called, and he's like, look, that you have lesions. I'll get you an appointment in here as soon as possible to go over it, but you need to get to a neurologist. So I'm like, okay. I didn't know what lesions were. I did the follow-up that he set me up with the doctor, and she goes, oh yeah, I know someone called you. I was like, well, yeah, why didn't you? But now we're here. So then she said, well, you have lesions. It could be something or it could be nothing. She walked out, told her MA to find me a neurologist and do my referral. Then I even heard her tell the MA, well, if you can't find someone, she can find them. She works at the insurance company. She can find them. Just do the referral. I just felt like that was just like, she just didn't really care, but that's fine. So anyways, I went to this neurologist. The neurologist didn't even look at the films or anything and just said, it's probably just migraines. So I went back to my endocrinologist who handles my tumor, and she was like, this is absolutely not because of your tumor. You need to go back to the neurologist. So again, just being shuffled back and forth, right? And everyone just acting like you don't matter, or like it doesn't matter because it's not happening to them, or they just think that there's just nothing important, right? So I called I called my PCP and said, can you get me a different neurologist or make me a new referral? She says, try this one again, and if she still blows you off, then I'll find a new one. Okay. So I go back to her, and this time she looks at my films, and this time she sends me for a spinal tap. And then this time after I came back after the spinal tap and after the films, well, two things. One, she messed up. She didn't order the blood work that apparently you're supposed to compare to the spinal tap to find about the bands. So she tried sending me back to a lab who said, no, those have to be done at the same time. So she kind of messed up. But after all I had been through, I wasn't surprised. So I come back. She says, you know what? I talked to my MS person here. You definitely do have MS after looking at the films where the lesions are. The lesion is on that nerve that would make that whole section, that whole branch affected. I'm sorry. I said, okay. So I said, I didn't know what MS was. I don't know if I'm oblivious. I don't know how many of you, you guys can tell me in the comments how many of you knew what MS was. But she said, okay, you gotta, we're not gonna do anything at this point. You had only the one flare. We're gonna wait and see. Maybe you'll never have a flare again, or maybe you will. It was just like a wait and see. I was like, okay, because I didn't know. And she said some people only have one and never have another one. I said, okay. So I walked out in there. The numbness finally went away, but I had it for 4 months. And because I didn't know what MS was, though, I told her, like, what is it? What do we do? I thought there was a cure. Like, I just thought it was like a medication you take and it's done. I didn't know. And she said, there is no cure. There's nothing. We can do steroids to lessen the time of a relapse, but that just lessens the time, and we try to save steroids for things that are more severe, like eyesight. I said, okay. But as far as meds to try to slow down the progression, we won't do that because this was your only flare. Okay, so I left. I went on about my life besides being super exhausted and having some pain and the numbness and sleepiness in my legs and all of that. And then all of a sudden my left eye, and I started to have like this spat of like denial. Like I was denying it. Like there's no way I have something that's incurable. All these things I looked up about it, like no. So I wanted to deny it. I didn't want to have it. I went to the hospital though after that because my left eye started hurting really bad, and all of a sudden all I could see was gray. It hurt for like 3 days, and I didn't go right away. I know that sounds crazy. I didn't call the doctor right away either. I just, after everything, I just felt like, I don't know. So it was hurting, but then once I could only see gray, I was like, okay, I gotta call. So I called the doctor, the neurologist's office, and they said, go to the ER. And I said, last time I went to the ER, they did nothing. They sent me home. They said if it's not life-threatening, they don't do anything. And she said, no, but this is your vision. This isn't numbness. You need to go. So I went back to the ER. They put me on a spot of steroids for a few days, as I'm sure most MSers are used to, right? So I went through that. I went through a few days of the steroids. I felt horrible. My son was like crying for me. He wanted me home. And anyways, but I can't. So once I did come home though, the withdrawal from those steroids was, I don't know, how do you guys feel after it? Because I felt in so much pain. Like, I don't know. It's like, it was a really bad withdrawal. Like I felt hurting. I felt achy. I felt, I don't know, like a swampy. I don't know how to describe that, but I felt like cold but sweaty at the same time. Clammy, that's the word. Sorry, clammy. You know, it's hard with MS to think of words, right? Okay, so I don't know, but so I went through that for like a whole day and a half or something while I was tapering. But my vision came back, the pain went away, so that was good. At first she said still that they didn't want to put me on anything, so I did find a different neurologist that they had referred me to from the hospital, a new one, and this neurologist gave me a pamphlet of some medications that was on a website. He said, go on this website, look up these medications, and come back and tell me what you want to take. And I don't know if that's something that happens to everyone. I don't know if, I understand that, like, there's a lot to look at and a lot to go through, but I just felt like some direction would have been nice. Like, most people say, like, oh, their doctors, like, narrowed it down to so many. He was like, just go on the website and pick one. So I narrowed it down to a few, and I went back, and I was having all these problems. Now I had bad spasms. I was tired. Like, things felt worse. And I don't know if it was because I was just more going through all this stress now, because now people are saying I have this, but nobody knows what to do. And he said, they really should have started you on something right away. And I'm like, well, I don't know. So I narrowed it down to a couple. I went in and said, can you give me your opinion on these couple? Can you tell me what you think is better or worse? He said, no. He said, I don't do that because everyone thinks certain symptoms are worse than others, and I'd rather just let my patients pick. And I just kind of felt like that was alone, I don't know. Like, how many of you guys, is that what happened? Did they just, here, choose? I didn't like it. But I ended up back in the hospital because I had another flare on my other eye, though. Same thing, optic neuritis, but my other eye. Great, right? So, same protocol, went through the same thing. They did give me a little bit of extra meds when I was there this time because it was hurting me a lot more. But after that, I seen a different neurologist. Well, actually, I went back to that neurologist at first because I didn't have anyone else, like, when I first got out. And I was telling him I'm having horrible migraines. My neck feels like it's, like, spasming like crazy. I was in so much pain. And he was like, I'm going to send you back to your PCP for this because this is something, like, outside. And then my PCP was like, no, neurology should be handling your migraines and your spasms and all of that, too. So I ended up with a different neurologist. And that neurologist is like, you look like you have cervical dystonia. I have found other people with MS that have this now. They don't know if I got it from the actual MS. They don't know if it's from, but I do have lesions on my neck, so it's a possibility. Or if it was from like the meds I took for it. It doesn't matter why I got it. The point is that it's there. So he started putting Botox in my muscles. His muscle relaxers, nothing was working. I was in bed. I couldn't eat because my neck was so tight that like trying to put food down my throat, it was hard. My husband would have to make me smoothies. My husband was like, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, nothing. I never wanted to eat anymore. But he would make me, or I would eat because I had to. And let's just talk about the depression side of that, right? I was depressed. I was definitely in bed. I felt like, I mean, you have like the mom guilt, right? Like, you can't do the things you thought you could as a mom, for the moms out there, or as a dad, if you're a dad. I'm sure it's the same. You have that parent guilt. We'll call it that then. I call it mom guilt, but we can call it parent guilt. Because you don't feel like you can be out there doing the certain things that you wanted to do with your kids anymore, right? Like my daughter liked for me and her to do like Zumba classes together. And actually the first bout of optic neuritis I had was at a Zumba class, because nobody told me that if you overheat, now that you have this, it can cause severe issues. So I took a Zumba class with her, and this was the first Zumba class. And, well, yeah, I walked out of there not being able to see. But nobody told me, and I'm sorry, that was my second, that was when it happened to my right eye. But nobody told me after you have the optic neuritis, you know, sometimes it's easier to get it, or even with MS, you're not supposed to overheat. Nobody told me any of that until like this last neurologist told me, don't get in a hot tub because, you know, if you overheat, things can happen, which I've clearly saw now. But, you know, see, there's those different things that now you have to change your life, right? I mean, you guys can comment in there what things you've had to change, what you've had to give up, because it does. It feels guilty, but don't feel guilty. I've had to learn, because you can't do those certain things with your kids. Or, you know, I have a son who used to be in a lot of sports and be active, and I had to limit what I can do and watch and be out in the heat, because it's very hot where we live. My husband too, you have like the wife guilt, or, you know, you could say spouse guilt, because I'm sure husband's the same, but you don't feel like you can do the same things that you could as a spouse, you know, going out, or you know, just being as active, I guess would be the word, because you can't, like, people look at me and say you look fine. Isn't that the worst? Like, how do you feel when someone tells you look fine? I mean, maybe it's good to hear. It's good to hear, hey, you look nice today, right? I mean, yeah, you like that, but it's hard when it's, I don't feel good, right? Or they say, oh, I heard that, you know, so-and-so saying that you have MS and that you're not doing that great. But you look great. You look great. Like, I don't think you're sick. Like, almost like they think you're full of it. Or, like, I just wish I could give my body to them for a day. I literally went to the hospital. One of the times that I went to the hospital, my doctor told me to go, you know, for steroids. I told the check-in lady, you know, I have MS. I'm here. I think I'm having a flare. My doctor told me to come. And she looked at me and she goes, you have MS. Just like that, like with an attitude and all, like questioning me. Yes, please look up my records. I've been here several times. Oh, okay, well, there's lots of treatments now. But kind of like confused. Like, you don't look like you have MS. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to look. Do people get that? Like, do you ever feel like you're supposed to, like, walk around with an MRI attached to your neck or something? Like, around your neck, I mean, or, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm sensitive, but I do not like that. Like, when people just say, you know, like, you look fine, like, they don't believe you're sick. And MS fluctuates, right? Like, I was in bed for a really long time, when I was trying to figure out, like I said, when they ended up putting the Botox in my neck. I swear cervical dystonia has been like the worst. But I have a lot of things. I have spasms that go all around my legs. If I try to do like gardening or anything that a normal person should be able to do, or you try to act normal for a day, God forbid, my legs will be out literally for like a week. There was one time I could not walk. Like, my legs would not bend or straight. Like, I could not walk right for a week. and it was really bad. Just because I tried doing, certain things like gardening and stuff outside that kind of, I guess, took my quads, muscles or whatever. So I don't know how many of you go through that. Everyone's different, I know. My biggest issues is if I use my legs for one day, or I should say overuse, I guess, or if I walk too much, or if I stand too much, or anything, they'll literally be down for 3 days to a week. Focus, memory is close to none. My son calls me Dory. I know that sounds mean, but he's not. I mean, my son understands, and we gotta joke, right? Like, if we're gonna sit here and be serious all the time, I've already went through the denial phase. I went through a long depression phase. I'm not doing that. I just want to be positive, right? Like, I did make a video once. I had a lot of views. It was when I first got, but I was in a total depressed state. I took it down. It was not what I wanted. I do not want this to be a depressed channel. I want to show people how you live with MS. I'm going to show my bad days too sometimes, because I want it to show, but I don't want that to be just what this is about. I want people to be able to share. I want people to listen. I just wanted to put my symptoms out there, my journey out there, and hear about other people's journeys and see if they comment that they go through the same things. I know that this seems a little, maybe too much rambling or talking, and I do apologize because I do that, because with my MS, I just, how many of you guys can't focus or can't find the words or start to speak on one topic and want to stay on topic, but then it kind of, you go off and then you remember and try to go back. And I know some people say, well, that's just, moms in general forget things, or they ramble or linger, but this is way much more, right? Like with MS, my husband handles so much around here. God, that guy, thank God. Because he really, like, when I was depressed and stuff, he was handling everything with the kids. When I couldn't eat because the muscles were just too tight that I just couldn't get food down, he was making my smoothies for me. He was making sure that I was still getting what I needed. He was making sure the kids were getting off to school. He was making sure that the bills were paid, because I couldn't I still don't usually remember. Like, he'll tell me, hey, can you make the credit card payment? And I forget. So he always has to just have everything scheduled and try to put calendars. My oldest daughter, who's in high school, she does a lot around her. Thank God for her too. She does a lot of the driving and stuff, like if he's at work. So, I mean, what things have you had to give up? What things have you had to change? What things make you frustrated? How was your journey? Were you able to just get a diagnosis like that? Or did you go through the whole, you look fine, we don't think so, it's stress, try this, try that, mumbo jumbo? My daughter has something, not MS, but it's something they call like a zebra disease too, where people don't really know a lot about it. She has EDS, hypermobility, which I found out I also have. But when I got diagnosed, the doctor told her, you're lucky your mom's pushing for you, because with all of the symptoms that you have and the issues that you've had, a lot of doctors would just look at you and tell you you're stressed, or tell you to go see a psychologist. Or she's like, you're lucky because since your mom is diagnosed is what paved the way for you. And she's getting the help she needs, but it could have been so much worse. Like, I had to literally fight tooth and nail for her too, and I just don't understand, like, why? Like, there's these illnesses out here and people know about them. Why is it so hard for somebody to diagnose it, or to look, or even want to? Like I said before, I just thought, maybe it's only certain doctors or certain people, but I hear more and more of these stories, and I just think it's sad. Even with the cervical dystonia, I've heard a lot of people, but it just seems sad to me. Like, people shouldn't have to go through all that. And there's Selma Blair, the person who has, money and stuff. You would think, like, okay, no big deal, give her an MRI. Like, why is it so hard? But yeah, I mean, and, so my main symptoms are the focus, the memory, like I said, the spasms, the pain. I hurt so much, the numbness. And it took me a long time to learn how to just live with it, and to fake that I'm not hurting today and not go on complaining about it. Or, you know, I've learned to take my nap every day if I need it, and just don't worry about what other people think. Don't sit there and think like, oh, well, when they're like, well, why do you need a nap? You're like so young, like what's the big deal? Or, oh, you don't look sick, so what do you mean that you're hurting? What do you mean you're in pain? What do you mean they put Botox in your muscles? What do you mean? You know, like, none of that matters. Like, people, they can judge all they want to. They don't know. I always say, I wish I could give my body to somebody just for a day. Like, just give it to you for a day, and let's just see if you beg to give it back, you know? But yeah, I really want to hear from you guys. I know it was a little bit of rambling, but I really want to make this channel something. So, you know, give me any feedback. Let me know if you've gone through any of this stuff, what your symptoms are. And yeah, have a good day.